Thanks very much for coming, everyone, to our first weekend. Just for the sake of the camera, I'm going to reintroduce Joyce very quickly. For those of you who don't know, she has been painting for over 30 years, and this is her first show with Lisson Gallery in London, and she's based in Brooklyn, and as you can see, she's brought most of Brooklyn with her today for the show. She works with cartoon characters in these dark gestural enamel works, and as you can see on the back, in mural form as well. And we're going to talk to Joyce today about her work with Norman. And Norman, I won't reintroduce him, but also has a connection to Joyce, having curated a show called Empire State, among many others. But that's how Joyce is connected to Norman. So I just wanted to start sort of at the beginning with you, Joyce.
Yes.
And ask you what made you want to be a painter? Why were you a painter? How did that happen?
A painter or an artist?
A painter or an artist?
It was the only thing I could do that that meant something, for a little person, little girl. And it was promoted by teachers, and they saw the gift that I had. So,
can I ask, does everybody hear properly what's going on? Can you all hear or not? Can you all hear? Because even I, fine, when you're facing that way, I can all barely hear you.
Okay. Try again, Joyce. A bit louder.
okay.
Well, you came. Your father came to America originally from
Yes.
Sicily, and was it he who introduced you to your comic books and cartoon characters?
I say this many times. My dad was my first mentor because he was like 13 when he came to the United States from a small town in Sicily, and so his generation totally threw away their past and embraced America and New York, symbols like the Statue of Liberty and Empire State Building and 42nd Street. So he would bring my brother and I to all these incredible places when you were little. It was like Christmas time, going to 42nd Street.
Every day.
Every day, seeing the lights and so it's his influence on me with the comics, and I don't think he knew what was going on with the baseball going on, but he would take my brother and I to see the New York Yankees and stuff like that. So I hope that answers the.
Yeah. And when did you move to Brooklyn then?
I never got out.
You went straight to Brooklyn.
She was born in Brooklyn, as far as I know, weren't you?
I was born, and I lived 3 subway stops away from where I grew up.
You've never left. We're very lucky to have Joyce here, by the way, because she's been very busy, as you can see, working here for 2 weeks on the show. And then after the show opened, she went to Rome for a week and has kindly come back for the talk.
Yes.
So refreshed after your... it's hard work. You spent, day and night here.
It was like Michelangelo, except it wasn't the ceiling.
She did an even bigger one for Rome and for Paris. A big, 2 big mural pieces. But Joyce, the biggest question I have for you.
Yes.
First of all, is what, roughly speaking, you were doing 30, 40 years ago. But equally, more importantly for me,
yes.
is considering that you're now that I know you, that you have been all these years an incredibly well-connected person. You knew Philip Guston.
No.
Did you know Philip Guston?
No, he gave me a critique at the school. Twice.
Anyway, somehow you touched Philip Guston, whatever that means, and you worked with Helen Frankenthaler. No, did you?
Joan
no,
Mitchell.
it was Joan Mitchell. I always get those 2 ladies muddled up. Okay, perfect. Joan Mitchell. And why, maybe I'm answering the question myself already.
Go ahead.
Why, when I did this show, which I still regard as the most important show I ever was involved with, okay? A New Spirit in Painting back in 1981, which showed all those, a lot of European artists, but even Julian Schnabel and lots of American artists and so on and so on, de Kooning, etc. Why did and of course later on, and even later on, you were very closely connected with Christopher Wool. You know what I mean? You shared a studio with him or something like that. So you know him very well. I saw Christopher on this trip, and he said, how much he loved you and so on. Why were you never on my radar? Why have you only now, if you like, and we're sort of roughly contemporary, do you know what I mean? Roughly. I know you're much younger than I am, really, but somehow we're...
I think we're similar.
Yeah. I mean, I was born in 44. Anyway.
I'm not going to tell you when I was.
I know. It's... Why did I never know about you? Do you think it was because you're a woman? Because again, in New Spirit in Painting, this is in 1981, there was not a single woman in the show. I look at the catalogue, and it wasn't an issue. There were lots of issues around that show. It was a very controversial show, but nobody said, why are there no women artists in this exhibition? Not one person, not one critique, not one letter, nothing. That would not be possible today.
You're asking Joyce where she was in 1980.
Where were you in 1981, and what was your kind of,
All right.
Okay, there you are. I've given you the idea.
I went to the New York Studio School as an older student. So I had just left in actually they kicked me out after 6 years and said, time to go. And so 81, I was just like a new person, young artist, trying to find my way in the studio. And I was doing these, the drawings that are here now, like cartoon figures. And I was trying to make it in a painting, but could never get it clear. It always became totally abstract and lost the image. And it actually took me 1990. I was sort of hit, I can't blame anyone. It was me. Doing my thing in the studio. And then, for me, a major thing happened. I was going to have a show with these abstract paintings, and I was doing these cartoon drawings at the same time. So I was very divided. And it got canceled, and it took me, I was shocked, and it made me look at what I was doing. And I said, I have to I love drawing cartoons and working try to make it one. And this is where I asked Christopher, because he's a hip artist, I wanted to be hip too.
Okay. By then, I included Christopher, I think, in a show in Berlin, which is called Metropolis, but he never told me about you. And in the way, one expects artists to tell people like me about other artists. That's how one discovers artists.
I don't think I was ready then.
Really?
I think
these were the early Christopher Wools.
It took me a long time when I started becoming one with the painting and drawing and keeping it simple using black and white graphic. That's when things started to happen for me.
And what year would you say that was?
1990. I mean, Christopher actually was showing Lauren Augustine because he was forming a show about women. He selected 4 women, and one of them was me. And he was showing his gallery my work. And of course, they all were interested in the drawings, not the paintings. And so I was in a group show at Lauren. I started big and then went down and then went up there again. So I started with Lauren Augustine in 303 Gallery. And then I went with the French Gallery, who gave me my first one-person show and was developing the painting. It took a while, but I'm not out there. I was in Brooklyn doing my thing and had my own group of friends. And you were lucky to be in a group show, have 3 on your resume or something.
Who were they? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. We're at the group show?
Yeah, who else was in that group show? You don't? Who knows? They've gone off the...
Norman.
But I mean, going to Joyce's studio, I can tell you, I mean, it's wonderful to go and there is a sense in which Joyce has attempted to bring her studio to London, and you can see it in that room at the front there, and it's very wonderful to see it. You have to imagine, you have to try and put your head round the street where she lives, and the stairwell, the staircase, and climbing up to the top, to the rafters, and it's kind of quite...
Well,
What should we say? What's a good adjective to describe your place? A little bit kind of rough.
Edgy.
Rough, edgy, and kind of a little bit, you feel it's kind of quite slummy, and that's kind of part of the...
Thank you.
No, but in a good way, in a really good way. You feel it's kind of life.
Has character.
It feels like life is being lived.
Yes, and I like that.
Yeah, that's what you like, isn't it?
Yeah, that's home to me.
And
The
Joyce,
slums.
what are you going to do now that half your home is here?
Wow, this is, I mean, I'm going to go on eBay and look around in the neighborhood and
Fill it back
start
up.
to fill it up quickly.
Yeah.
I still have stuff in storage, so I'll have to bring it out.
You go out and buy all this kind of stuff. I mean, talking about the dolls and the soft toys and so on.
Yeah.
You just go to the markets to buy them.
No. Sometimes you find it, or friends give it to you. Or in the old days, you could find it easily. Now they put it on eBay, so nobody throws it out.
Really? Because they all know there's a client out there.
Yeah.
There's a customer out there. The big buyer.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, but I always have my eye on.
When did these soft toys come into your part of have they been? Are they an aspect of your childhood, or are they something that really came to you as an artist?
As an artist, at the studio school, it was Mercedes Matter, the founder, and it was based on the French system, and it was still lifes. It was Cezanne and Matisse, and everybody in the school had apples and pears working with.
Now, the Roger Fry thing, we would say in England.
Yeah.
You know about Roger Fry? Probably not. He actually was a kind of director of the Metropolitan Museum, certainly head of paintings at the Metropolitan Museum. He was this English critic who, at the turn of the last century, the beginning of the last century, if you like, who brought the idea of modern art to this country. To a degree, he had a certain kind of success, limited success, I would say, but he did this very important exhibition called Post-Impressionism, I think in 1912, was it 1908, 12 or 8, in a gallery in Bond Street, which was the exhibition that basically brought Cezanne and Gauguin and all the others to London for the very first time, the Post-Impressionists. But somehow British, that's another whole story about, the reception of that kind of art in this country, of modern art in this country. But he was, in a way, the first. So in that sense, and then he was taken to New York and became head of paintings at the Metropolitan Museum for a short time.
I can't really imagine Joyce doing still lifes, but you sort of do refer to these as still lifes, and you refer to your characters and your objects in your studio very often while you're painting.
So anyway, Mercedes said, I don't care what you have to look at something, I don't care what you look at. And so I looked.
Who said that?
Mercedes Matter, the head of the studio school.
Yeah.
And so through that, I like pop culture, and I like throwing away things you find in the garbage. I wish I had a photograph of that. So this is way back in 73, 74. My studio was like that room, filled with anything I could find. It was in that room. I was sharing a studio with somebody. I think they left and they gave me the whole room to myself. And but I found I liked pop culture, and it was coming from my childhood, the connection and toys. So.
Did you meet Andy, for example?
No. Andy
Warhol?
No.
Never went to his studio or anything like that?
No,
No?
I would tell you, I was like in in the woods there.
In the Brooklyn woods.
Yes.
Yeah. Andy being a Manhattan guy, very clearly.
He was very out there. I was not.
How often did you get to Manhattan in those days?
I would go. I hated being in Brooklyn, so I would go often. I would shop at Balducci's for food, and get off the subway and go with my Balducci bag. But I was a Brooklyn girl.
But if I say, I'm going to get back to you as an artist, if I say your art to me, and I was so surprised when I saw it for the first time, I actually went to, when we were doing the show with Alex, and I did this show called Empire State last year, so obviously there was like 2 years of preparation, and I went to visit loads of studios, of course, in New York, and I went to your gallery, actually to look at another very distinguished artist in your gallery. And then, if you have a kind of eye in the back of your head, at least I like to think I do, third eye, I suddenly see this painting of yours. And I said, what's that? And your gallerist said, well, this is Joyce. And I kind of said, this looks really interesting. And then I went to this studio and I had this wonderful experience with you, and we had this wonderful time together, and I was so complete. And then I suddenly felt that your work was a kind of incredible fusion. At that time, I thought it was a fusion of abstract expressionism, and the artist who came to my mind most of all was not Joan Mitchell. It was much more Franz Klein.
Yeah.
If you like, almost the masculinity of Franz Klein.
Right.
At one level, and then of course pop art. But the other, I think, aspect that I think is there, that now that I think I know you a little bit better, of course, is also that whole graffiti thing, which is also very much buried. So I mean, you seem to be this amazing, to me, amazing fusion of so much comes together in your work,
right?
And I think that is, the thing that kind of gives, art is all about memory, I think, and about what you're all about. I mean, these, you say they're about still lives, and you can see, I can see Mickey there on the floor. Do you feel he's alive, or do you really feel he is the still life?
No.
Are you a kind of...
I don't think of it as still life. I mean, it took me, when I first started doing it, it was a still life space, because you're looking down or whatever. You're doing exactly what it looks like. And it took a couple of years to make it my own space. Change... I could do anything, put the head up there and, take it apart.
And when did you start the murals, as I call them? Would you call them murals, or what do you call them?
No.
Wall paintings?
Installation, wall painting.
What do you call this? What's your word for it?
A wall painting.
A wall painting.
Yes. Well,
and would you like it to be there forever in a perfect world? You like,
No, I think that's part of it, doing direct on the wall. It has a certain time, and it's going to be gone, unless you're really well known. I accept that. That's part of it.
But would you like to do it has somebody come to Nicholas and said, I want one? Would you go to you go to a...
definitely would.
Yeah?
Yes.
And would you do it in such a way that it could actually be there for a very long time?
Yes.
And be there in perpetuity?
I think this could be here for a long time, because now I'm
Nicholas, you're not allowed to take it down.
Well, this becomes, as you suggested earlier, this becomes a museum, but just a museum to one artist.
Yeah.
One wall.
Yeah.
You just keep this, and everything, for example, I'm doing these shows in Oxford, sorry to advertise.
Maybe we should just cover it up.
And I've left in the gallery an Assyrian sculptural relief, and everybody's got a kind of talk to this Assyrian sculptural relief. I think dialogue is interesting.
Yes. I mean, to me, it has to do with where you are, the space. It has so much. Anyway, I started doing this early 90s when installation was popular, and I thought this is a good way to travel, working thing. And if you could do it on canvas, why not on a wall? And then it became, as I did more of it, it became more interesting, because I had to do with architect, where it was, the space, the country. It became more of things.
Which is the first one you did?
I did it in New York, 303, as a wall drawing.
Roughly what date, roughly?
1993 or 2.
So you've been doing them for a long time.
I stopped, and then I came back a couple of years ago. I did something they called Well, I did a wall painting on Fifth Street on a wall there. I had to do it with 3 other people. And I discovered the cherry picker, so instead of the stepladder.
Oh, I see. And so,
And it
well, I mean,
freed me up.
again, I mean, this is, but I mean, 1993 is almost before people like Keith Haring, isn't it? And what
Yeah.
you might call before those kinds of people were getting.
Well,
like,
Keith Haring was the 80s.
Really, of course, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know his work? And did you?
I know his
Did you
work.
like what I call the world of? Did you went riding on the subway in New York? If you ride
I
the
love
subway
it.
in New York now, it's so totally clean. But in those days, every carriage was covered, top,
And
bottom, inside, outside,
Beautiful.
with incredible graffiti, thousands and thousands of them. You know?
No, my dream was always to be a graffiti artist, but I'm a little slow for that now, because you have to be fast.
Do you think there were there any kind of female graffiti artists, do you think?
There probably was, but I wasn't aware of them. There probably was a few.
And then these handful of people kind of rose and became, as it were,
Yeah.
suddenly became art world figures. How do you think that happened? Do you know? Were you aware of? I mean,
Oh, you take a subway, you had to be aware of all that.
no,
going
but I mean,
on.
how did the presumably dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of kids who were making graffiti then? How do you think they how did the 3 or 4 that we know about today and remember today become, as it were, whatever that means, kind of commodity, for want of a better word,
Yeah.
art commodity?
I think all the kids were aware and that they just did it, even if they were that talent. That was the time.
Did you know any of them?
No, I didn't. I know one time I in my neighborhood, there was a great spot, and I did it my way. I took a brush and paint and did a duck, and you could see for so far, but I was not like the kids. I did it with. I love doing it.
Was it
quickly.
strictly illegal?
Yes, and but they painted over. So that was
Have you
the end of
done? Did you
that.
do it would be great to have a book of all your mural pieces. Is there
Yeah.
such a thing? Is Nicholas going to commission one or
No,
organize one for you?
I have a plan to get all my photographs of the installations I did and put it together.
I think that would be a great thing for Nicholas to do.
Ironically, actually, although this did take you a long time, you do work incredibly fast. I mean,
Yes.
you could get in and get out before the cops arrived in some
Well,
ways, but...
I'm not that fast.
Well, no, but, I'm talking about the gestures.
The gestures
'cause
are very
The
quick.
rain of paint down both these sides
I left to go to America 2 days before the opening, and it was black, or 3 days before the opening. It was completely black. Now I come and I see it's silver. So how did that I mean what was that decision all about?
Well, I wanted to build a surface, and I thought of the black, and then it has to go white to build, and then it was gold, and then after a while I got stuck, and white wasn't working, the black took over too much, and I tried the silver a little bit, it was flat, and what happened? It built up such a surface, and I thought it has to be a neutral thing, and silver was the thing and be open and not be like a cutout. So that was how it ended. But I like that kind of edge when you're working, that this took me to a new place for me. It wasn't something I knew. I wanted it had to be different.
I mean, I think it's a question for every artist, is when is a painting finished? You know, how do you know, when do you know, almost every painter, including even Cézanne, in fact, archetypally Cézanne, when is the painting
I don't
finished?
know, you just know when it's finished. I mean, I can't say. It talks back to you, it says, with something else will be totally different.
Or it'll get ruined, or you lose it.
change
You lose it.
Right, you lose it. Then it's something else, and then you have to work it out.
Do you have friends? Do you have not a mentor, but somebody who you talk to, or is it completely solitary?
I'm more solid, actually.
Yeah.
No, when I go to the studio, It's the dog and Charlie, the dog and me.
Yeah, it's not very big, the studio. I mean, it's not, I'd say barely half the space of this room. Would you
Right.
say? I mean, not nearly as high.
Oh, no.
You've got one.
But I jam it up.
And it's jam with,
Actually,
these
Norman,
toys.
when you first came over, you asked me if I sleep with the toys. And I said, do you know any artists who sleep with these dollies?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
He
kind
said,
of,
"Do you
it
sleep
was like a
with
big,
your
it's like a
dolls?"
huge pile. I mean, you could imagine just lying on top of them,
I said, how
having
crazy
fun.
do you
Well,
think I am?
well, I mean, and then we danced a bit, didn't we?
Yes.
We
I was
danced.
trying to teach Norman to have a Brooklyn accent, but it was
No,
almost
that's
hopeless.
a lost cause. Like trying to teach you an English accent. Could you try?
Yes, I could try.
Well, try.
Good morning.
So then the other thing, of course, you have is these kind of these collages, as it were,
Yeah.
with lots of kind of, seem to be cut out of magazines, sort of various heroes. I suppose whether it's Marilyn Monroe or Muhammad Ali, but I mean there are lots of them. And, some of them, I mean, some are called, I mean, even here, obviously there's Groucho, but, that's another whole subject. But, where are we here? Even here, Johnny and Travis, I'm not very good at all this subculture, television subculture of America or magazine subculture.
Well,
but do you have particular people that you, the minute you see, or
Well-
what draws you, what makes you cut something out?
To me, they're like heroes. And at first, the boxing image of the young catcher's play felt like abstract expressions, the movement, boxing and punching and all that splattering. And I always have inspiration around where I'm painting. And I noticed the drippings going on them, and they look very beautiful, touch and connected. And so I was drawn to the boxing image, and part of it was, I'll tell the Bob De Niro story. The young Bob De Niro in Raging Bull was incredible. All those. So I started looking at boxing, like eBay. I was like every night looking for images of strong images like that. And so I started getting into Bob De Niro, and he was my hero in the 70s. He was a cool guy.
He was quite a small guy, wasn't he?
Yes, short guy, but intense.
Italian, of course, like you.
And a couple of years ago, Bob De Niro calls me up because I won this award that he was giving his dad, and I got to meet Bob De Niro. And I thought, this is my hero. I can't believe it. I didn't tell him I was doing collages of him before.
Did he want to date you? Did he want to date you, my dear? Did he want to take you out?
No,
Did you
but
actually meet him?
Yes, I gave him a kiss.
You gave him a kiss.
And he kissed me too. So anyway, but
Quite right.
now Bob looks like my Uncle Tony because Bob is about...
You should have offered him a painting or said, I'll paint you or something.
No. But he doesn't look like the young Bob that I remember from 1973. And now he looks like my Uncle Tony. So
Okay, your uncle.
it ruined my whole image of De Niro as a young guy. So
Did he have one of your paintings? No.
I gave him a Donald Duck drawing, and he said how much he liked. He's not very visual. He's all about movies, but he wants to do something about his dad.
What's the difference between a movie and a painting to you?
It's very different. A movie and
why are we interested in paintings? Do you think movies are different
Yes.
as a kind of cultural thing? I mean,
Yes.
this world of videos
It's
and
different.
artists who get into that.
Totally different because, you're using whatever the mechanics of moving images rather than precisely on a canvas.
You know, I hardly ever go to the movies. I love paintings. I love them because they're still. They don't move, and you
Right.
can never stop looking at them.
Right.
And I love this idea of looking and looking and looking and looking, and then still never seeing it all. You know, I've looked at this, I've looked at these paintings, and I look at paintings all the time, I suppose, and that's been my life.
Right.
And, you know, what I like about paintings is that you can never, even though they're still, and even one-dimensional, and we're speaking here in a largely sculptural gallery, a gallery that, if you like, has made its name out of sculpture, particularly, that there's only one way to look at a painting, which is straight into it.
Straight, yeah.
And then you never can see it all, and the minute you leave it, you haven't seen it properly.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that or not?
You
need to
get
come back to it.
You get into it, yeah, I do. You get into it and you're in it, and then you remove yourself.
Do you go to museums a lot, for example?
Yes, but not that often now in New York. But I'm aware, I go to shows and stuff like that, special shows and whatever.
Great show in New York at the moment at the Museum of Modern Art of Gauguin prints. Have you ever made prints?
Once. I'm not, I like more direct, like,
I mean,
rather
making a-
than the process.
I mean, would you ever would you know how to make a monotype, for example?
I have done that in the past.
Yeah?
A couple of years ago, I did an edition of lithographs, but I was really, I don't know, it was like the first time doing it. So they did a print of Felix the cat, and then I drew on top of it. So I had like 68, the same. It was totally crazy.
There was a time in the gallery when Joyce was installing all of her studio where there was a bit of a gap, and I saw her just stapling up a bit of paper, and then a couple of hours later, there you were drawing
Yeah.
Donald Duck on the wall, you know, with a bit of pastel and a bit of charcoal or something, and there was all the stuff on the floor. Is that how you work on the wall of your
Yes,
studio? You staple
correct.
things up?
Yeah,
You staple
yeah,
everything up to
I'll
the wall?
staple it up and just do it quickly, and maybe have 4 or 5 drawings at the same time,
On the go,
Yeah.
at one go?
not just one, unless it's a big one.
I might be able to answer your question, your own question, Norman, from earlier about why Joyce wasn't in Spirit of Painting in 1981, because I read an interview in which you talked about how that show was actually a replacement for a show that was long in the making, and you had to put this show together very quickly, as you did with Sensation in 97. And there was a nice quote where you said, "Contemporary art is best done at great speed and in heat." And I don't know what "in heat" means. Maybe they mistransliterated your,
I mean,
your words.
quite literally is that, you know, if you plan a show too long in advance, you know, by the time the show happens, you've already missed the boat of contemporaneity.
Yes.
Because, you know, I think you need to kind of do it with very, you know, huge speed. Actually, funnily enough, the show I did with Alex, I took much longer than usual, like 2.5 years. But
And they were New York artists or New York, not strictly painters. It
but
was
people
just,
who lived or had a real relationship. There was one exception with an artist who lived in Berlin, what she called, I'm being stupid, but the black woman artist who lives in Berlin, who's also a professor of Kant and...
I know exactly who you mean.
but,
She,
you know, the Kantian professor.
she does the big architectural.
Yeah, I mean, no, she does
sweeping
these
drawings.
blackboard things.
Yeah.
These big blackboard and she's very close to Gordon Matta Clark.
Yeah.
But that we took quite, but most of the contemporary show, I think one should work quickly to get, in a way, it's like making a painting like this. You have to do it with, you know, with speed to get the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Because every moment generates its own heat. And, you know, that's what one's got to try and do, because next year, it's another, you know, the agenda is already a little bit different in terms of not so much the consensus, because that sounds as though artists are throwaway people, which they're not. But I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I also see that in your painting, Joyce, in the way that it's fast and gestural, but then you go back to it and you overpaint it. Do you do the same with your paintings?
Yes.
Do you have 3 or 4 on the go?
It has to have a certain structure, and I'll go over it has to be, to me, perfect in my eyes. And so it's always constantly drawing till it feels right, the drifts are right, or the expression on the eyes and face are right.
And you presumably, like with this mural, you have to leave the various coats to dry, the enamel, because it's wet, and and what you like about it is it still looks wet even when it's finished.
Yes, that's it. I want it to be like you just did it 5 minutes ago, and it's alive. That's important to me.
And is that what's slightly different with the kind of installation? Because there must be something about these discarded things that you like, or something that is sort of unloved, or, you know, you sort of collect these things.
I have to connect to whatever it is. Sometimes it's accumulation, and sometimes I'll have some stuff hanging out that I don't connect to, but I have an interest in. And maybe 10 years later, all of a sudden, that's it. I see it. I could do, you know, I feel it. And it's the South Park guys. In the mid-'90s, they were very popular, and I thought, wow, that would look great as a painting, you know, just simple lines. But it was so simple, I could not, I gave up on it. But these guys were hanging out in the studio. And then like 12 years later, I felt it and I could connect to it. But I do not watch cartoons. They're just my, you know, inspiration.
So you look at them, as Norman was saying, as 2D things. You're not looking at them as moving animations. You just look at.
They're, and
because you started out with a Batman, you know, a life-size Batman in your studio, didn't you? A kind of one of those cardboard cutouts.
way back in the mid-'70s, and they would have this life-size, Batman, they had Spider-Man, and those characters. And so I put it on the floor and took it as a still life. And then I realized it was like doing more than the still life, because it was Batman, he had ears. And I was drawn to the ears, the structure of it.
But, back in, when I was young, around living not very far away from here as a young, I come from literally this part of London.
Right.
And, my mother would take me on a Sunday to this little movie house on the corner of Oxford Street, in the winter. And we watched some, it was called the News Cinemas. There would be a little bit of news and there'd be a couple of cartoons.
Right.
There would be, I was about 7, 8, 9, 10. And we would go and watch these, and there were these 10-minute movies, little 5-minute, Donald Duck one and a 5-minute Mickey Mouse one. Yeah. Did you have those sort of things in New York?
We had that. We had about 21 cartoons on a Saturday, 3 movies and about 25 cartoons.
They were very short, these movies, they didn't last long.
Well, the cartoon, about 10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes, like little songs. They were very, very funny and very interesting. I don't know whether you could probably find them on YouTube now if you were to look.
Yeah, you can find everything.
You can find everything on YouTube. It's terrifying, isn't it? What a crazy world we live in. And they were very special, It's an amazing world. I mean, you talk about eBay. Where did you get your dolls from? Where did you get your soft toys from before eBay? Not that long ago. eBay's not that old.
Yeah, no, I would find it, garage sales, or friends would give me, if they found it, leave it to me. But you find it all, or people actually then threw it away in the garbage and find it there.
The kids grow out of their soft toys.
Right.
And they take up quite a lot of space at home in the attic, don't they?
They do, and that's where you find a good pile of them when they throw it out. Parents.
So,
and apart from Norman, who else? I've noticed you kind of having a bit of an interest in our culture, in British culture, and a few people in particular. You seem to be quite drawn to our royal family. I know Norman is art world royalty, but I'm talking about the Queen, and you've got some great masks next door of Her Majesty and some of the other characters. What draws you to that?
I think it's how I see England is the royal family. And, it's sort of almost like movie stars or pop culture imagery.
Because you introduced me to something I'd never heard of before. There's an Alec Guinness movie called The Horse's Mouth.
Oh, I loved it.
In which he stands on on a ladder and paints.
Yeah,
Well, he doesn't paint these murals. They're actually painted by John Bratby,
yeah.
who was quite a famous
He's
British
always looking
painter.
for the perfect wall.
It's a hilarious film. I've only seen clips of it on YouTube, obviously.
Yeah.
But how did you come in contact with that? Because it's quite a bit of it's almost like an Ealing comedy or something. It's very interesting. It's very funny.
Somebody told me about it, and I related to the character very much.
Yeah.
Of looking for that perfect wall, then the whole floor falls down. But he's always looking for the wall to do it on.
And it's very funny. Obviously, Alec Guinness is very funny. Do you look for humour in your work? Do you hope that it's there, or do you...
I want it to be emotional and not just funny, but something more deeper.
Because you don't like it to be sweet. You're not looking for cute.
Oh, no, we don't want sweet. No sugary, happy thing. It has to have something more than that.
Well, they are quite dark. Tell me a bit about that. What you once talked to me about them as being mask-like. What do you mean by that?
I think, with the clowns, they have, they're smiling, but we don't know what's underneath. There may be something more to it.
Yeah.
And it's like Jack Nicholson's smile, kind of. Some of
To
it.
some degree, you think you're painting yourself.
No, who knows?
I
I think a lot of that comes from deeply inside, the staring and you're looking out. So it's connecting to how somewhere inside me too. Putting emotional stuff on it.
Yeah, clearly, they are at one level portraits, whether they're self-portraits or not, but they're portraits of something.
Yeah.
And they're a way of expressing there is a kind of humanness under each of these objects.
That's what I want.
I think. And
Yeah.
that's what makes, I think, Joyce's work, which once again, I say, I hate not having known you, if not 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
But better late than never, Norman.
Better late than never.
Did you because I've had this conversation where people have either walked into the gallery or said they've done studio visits with Joyce, and they weren't sure who they were going to meet. They thought it was going to be a 25-year-old painter in Brooklyn. And what did you think when you went to meet Joyce? Did you know
I was just
who you were going to meet?
I was ravished. But I thought she's got such an amazingly young, lively, vibrant spirit, that relates to young people like me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
She also had an incredibly good relationship with young Alex, my co-curator, who's, by the way, now a museum director. Must be the youngest museum director in American history, age 26.
He's such a cool guy.
What?
He's such a cool guy.
He's really amazing and so serious and so kind of correct, but also with a huge sense of humor as well.
Yeah.
And, I think art is, of course, there is something funny about art and about the practice of art. But also, it's kind of as it were, it's on this weird edge between incredible seriousness and kind of the ludicrous, and I think that's something that you capture amazingly well in your own way. Every artist, has, not so much as, that's the other thing. You want sometimes to break out of this. Can you imagine painting a landscape?
No.
Why not?
No,
Or
need
even a
all that.
townscape? Would you want to sort of make some kind of equivalent to the Empire State Building?
Maybe the Eiffel Tower.
What?
The Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, because it goes like this, and you're very good at what I call these. It has this kind of sense of this kind of curve.
Yeah. No, landscape. I'm a city girl, and the landscape makes me very anxious.
You never go to the country.
Oh.
You hate trees. The one thing about Brooklyn is there are I think that there seem to be
One or two trees.
very few. Manhattan has quite a lot of relatively, there are trees in Manhattan, but there are very few trees in.
Well, I think
maybe I'm wrong, but
maybe it's where you're going.
where I'm walking, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. Your street has no trees as far as I
yes, we have a lot of traffic and
know. A lot of traffic. Yeah.
big trucks going
We
by.
should open this to
conscious-
the.
oh, yeah, I'm
we should
conscious-
open this up a little bit.
I'm conscious of the time.
which won't
and-
prevent me saying some things from time.
What is your interest in masks?
What was
Masks. Why do you
Mask
like
seems to
masks?
be a big theme. Mask.
Oh, Marge.
Masks.
Oh,
Masks.
masks. Sorry.
Masks. We say
So
masks.
she's Brooklyn,
Sorry.
honey.
Masks.
Mask, okay.
Can I interrupt? Do you like African and sort of that kind of, or
Yeah.
pre-Columbian art? Do you
Oh,
know?
I love that too.
Yeah.
But the I don't know. I mean, the mask, taking images from a mask, it's I don't know. I mean, but I am drawn to that, I know. And it makes life easier to look at something that's already a mask to work with, rather than a photograph of somebody or whatever.
And the way I understood it was that the paintings were almost like masks. You weren't necessarily talking about real masks, although you use a Batman mask, but you were talking kind of
Oh, the mask, okay.
metaphorically.
Got it.
Sorry, mask.
It's covering up something that's in you or deeper, and you're putting this mask on, I guess. Is that
Good.
answer?
Yeah.
You like dressing up?
No.
Do you like being dirty? Do you like
Yes.
the business of being, you like what I say being dirty in the sense you love, when you come here and watch Joyce show, I mean, she's so elegant today with new shoes, all the
that.
paintings she sold, she was
From
able to
Rome.
go to buy new shoes in Rome. But I
And
mean,
colour, colour.
it's quite a dirty business doing your work.
Well, her clothes are still there for all to see.
I left it on the chair.
They're for sale, by the way. Are they? Maybe not. I have no idea.
I might be for sale.
She's left them here as a memento. Another
Jack,
question
what about
in the middle. Yeah.
Jack over there?
Do you think the objects you've left in this space, like your studio stuff, changes the way we see the paintings? Does it add like another context to the process, maybe?
I'm afraid I
Do
didn't hear.
the objects in the space change the way you look at the paintings? How do they interact with the paintings?
Well, I'll describe it. I sometimes have really small things I'm looking at, actually really tiny. And then I just, this is making sense to what I'm, and then I enlarge it, but I have a connection to what I'm looking at. And I'll sometimes use the same, like Felix's eyes. It triggers something in me, and I'll use it many times. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think he meant more in terms of the objects that are in the gallery.
Yes.
Almost how do they speak to the paintings, or how do they affect the paintings?
Separate,
They're separate.
yeah.
I suppose.
I mean, I use some of them, but if they're objects lying down, no,
Nonetheless,
separate.
not many people take their studios, and you've done it before, I know, you did it once at Petzl, to
Yeah.
the best of my knowledge, I
Yeah.
didn't actually see it, they just take the contents of their studio and just move them. I mean, it's obviously something you do, it's like a kind of
only
statement.
the last couple of years, I feel, because I'm a mature artist now, I don't want to say how mature I am, and I feel I could let go and say, this is who I am. And you either take it or lump it, something like that. But I'm willing to share who I am.
And most artists, I can say, if you like, in general, there is your painting's about masks, but actually what is so wonderful about you is how open you are. But most artists, if you like, it's about the studio is a secret place that they don't want to share with anybody. It's like it's like the secret kitchen. Nobody's allowed into the kitchen. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know how it's made, and better not, Basically, the illusion is what it's all about.
And the myth
whereas
of the
yours
artist.
is really about a
Well, I'm
kind of
saying-
reality.
Yeah, I'm embracing who I am. I have confidence, and I'm saying, here, this is me. I'm willing to share who I am. But I couldn't have done this 10 years ago.
Even 10 years ago,
No,
really.
only the last couple of years. I think the Petzl, I always wanted
Was
to...
it his idea or your idea?
My idea. I always wanted to bring the studio in and trash up a fancy gallery. A nice Chelsea white, whatever, prestigious gallery.
Chelsea white. That's a whole new kind of. That's a great expression. I'm going to use that. Chelsea white. I think it's. If I take one thing away from this, is this kind of phrase, Chelsea white. We know exactly what that means. Even here. Huh?
Yeah, has it. I mean, but for here or Pestle, I wanted to make it my, have my stamp on it. And so at Pestle, and I feel here, a little more contained here, is I could do, when I spoke to Friedrich about bringing my stuff, and I also was being at the same time, I had to leave my studio that I was in for 32 years, so it helped move all the stuff there. And
then you can start again.
yeah, start a new, don't look back, start something new.
We've got another, sorry, I butted in. We've got another
Hi.
question over there.
I'm right here. Hi.
Sorry, we mustn't lose our audience.
A huge
Want
part
to
of...
stand up so we can all see you as well?
Okay, hello. A huge part of the exhibition that I see has to do with African American culture and the use of the mammy figure or Sambo. Coming from North America, this would be a huge topic. I'm a little bit shocked that it hasn't even been raised as a question or some part of the discussion.
Right.
So I'm wondering, where are you coming from with this
I've been, because I've been collecting for, some years, and I really love that culture. And I haven't analyzed it yet, but it inspires me for some reason. And I have a whole collection of found photographs of people, families, and also the cartoon. I haven't figured out why I'm so drawn to it.
I mean, is it just because maybe coming from the area where you're living in Brooklyn?
No.
Like, is it only...
Maybe a little Sicilian, I don't know, but...
I mean, is it
but
like
not from
predominantly
Brooklyn,
white
no.
community, or is it like mixed?
Sorry?
Are you coming from a predominantly kind of a white background, or has it been...
Yes, but maybe it's part, I haven't figured it out. But I use some images. Sometimes when I get stuck, I'll use a caricature. I'll tell you, hopefully, a funny story. To me, it was funny. Somebody asked me to do a wall drawing in their very fancy Hampton house. Everything was, again, white walls, white floor. And I am really messy with the charcoal. And they said, "Can you do a Felix?" So always I start with actually politically incorrect on their wall. And actually it's a famous Richard Price, a guy who did The Color of Money, wrote it. When he saw that image on his nice white walls, he got a little upset, saying, I have a lot of black friends and stuff like that. And I said, don't worry, this is just the beginning, how I start, because it just gives me a way to enter. And anyway, it doesn't sound so funny now, but it was funny at the time to me. And I don't know, the room that I had to go in, everything was white. I was afraid to sleep on the bed and use the towel. It was like mounds of charcoal.
Okay, another question. Yeah, thanks.
Is there any reason why Mickey Mouse has his pants down?
Uh-oh, I didn't.
Sorry, we
I
didn't
hear that properly.
Is there any reason why
Mouse
Mickey Mouse have their pants down?
Mickey Mouse has pastel?
Yeah.
No,
Wait.
he's got his trousers down.
Oh, I think it's funny with his trousers. No, actually, I had a visiting dog.
Why not?
Why not?
There's always a question.
Yeah. No, it was like that in my studio, and I always thought it looked fun. I had a visiting dog who I don't know what he was doing with Mickey Mouse, but the trousers were half off that.
Mickey was in a hurry when he got up this morning.
Nothing. It just looks funny to me.
You like your dogs, don't you?
I love...
But you've never painted them, have you? Or?
I did a couple of paintings. Actually, the dog I have, Charlie, I did a painting of him before I got him. No. Yes?
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
over
Yeah.
here. Sorry.
Stand up again. It's good to see you. For everybody.
In your world, in the world of your work,
Yes.
does Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Marge Simpson interact in your own mind? Do they have any narrative connection or?
No.
It's only you then. They're not talking to each other, or
No,
they don't talk to
no.
you, or you don't talk to
Only
them?
to me.
Hi, Joyce. You said that your work's not influenced by cartoons. Well, you don't watch cartoons, and it's more of a 2D dimension. But would you say it's more influenced by comics, like Marvel, or
Comics rather than cartoons, so kind of...
comic books from the
Comic
sort of
books and-
50s,
Right.
60s, 70s?
Probably the stillness of a comic book, on a comic book or image rather than on a movie or video. Because, when I first saw The Simpsons, I loved the hairdo of Lisa. And I realized it's connected to Mickey Mouse's ears and, Batman's ears. So it's like pointed, it's a drawing form. And I love Homer, his bald head. Yes.
Okay, fabulous Alice here with the coat.
Could I ask you what do you think children think of your work? Children? What do children think of your work? Children. Because they're off taught. I'm asking that because I remember when you did a wall painting in Dublin in a children's room.
Oh, I love
And the
that.
women wouldn't go in there. Remember they said it was
Oh,
like,
my God. Yeah.
it was a frightening situation.
I did a project in Dublin in the bad area, the Ballymun. as they
Ballymun,
call-
yeah.
And they gave us, the family just moved out and they gave it to artists to do whatever they want. And they gave me the children's room. And I thought was doing my thing of drawing and painting, and we found toys in the attic, and I brought it down, and I didn't think anything of it. And the neighbors were so horrified. And I thought it was my friend they were all, talking about. And they would, as I went up, I didn't say it was me who did it. They said, "Don't go in that room." They went on and on. I realized I hit a nerve, and I wanted to do more work there because something was going on. And to me, it was just how I worked. But they thought I was really trashing the whole place up.
Yeah, well, there is something. I mean, I think there's something that arises out of that question, which is that this work does bring out, hopefully, I think your work does bring out, amongst other things, the internal child in us all.
Yeah.
And that's great.
And maybe visually looking up, because
Yeah.
it is a big, the last couple of years, they are confronting the viewer. They're there.
Have you had the children from across the road come to the exhibition, Nicholas? Do they? I would imagine them having a particular pleasure out of this exhibition.
They come and supervise with their teachers.
Richard, you've got a question? We've got two more questions.
Could you say something about finding things? Because the thing that's delicious about listening to you is that it all seems to happen. So that I imagine that somebody is already preparing a bin round the corner with a couple of toys for you. So on your way home, you'll go, "Oh, look." But actually, my question's more about materials, because when you were doing this, I had a little reverie about silver paint and American art,
right.
and I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
We have silver paint, but we don't really use it. And I'd like to know, what's it like when you find a new material? What would it be like to be in a paint store with you, or a new charcoal stick?
When way back, when I was trying to find a way to keep the image together, and this is where my friend Christopher recommended that he uses enamel paint, and it was like being in the toy store. It's because you searched for how to express yourself with the paint, because you didn't know how to use it. So it brought something new to me. No, with I think any new material you'll find, you're not used to it. You can do whatever you want and create it whatever you want.
Okay, and one more question from Louise, who's been very heavily involved in the exhibition with Joyce.
Louise is great.
Thank you, Joyce. I wanted you to tell people a bit about the process of how you make your work, because I've watched you doing the painting, and it's very much this idea of applying layers. And the layers lead you somewhere. And with each layer, you would stop, you'd go out, think about it overnight, and then decide on the next layer. And then when we look at a work like Marge, it's almost the opposite. You've literally taken her away.
Right.
And I wonder if you could say something about the contrast between how you apply paint and then how you erase.
Two different things. The drawings, I found a way to express myself, and it was to tear down the paper and wet down the paper and then erase over it. So then the paper's falling apart and it has its own light. And then I discovered an electric sander, which was great, and really made, as you're erasing, it's the process of measuring and putting down and then erasing, these holes would start coming. And I had drawings on the brink of like being destroyed. And Marge is almost on that brink right now. I think if I worked on it more, it'd be falling apart. But I like that edge. And the paintings are, process of dripping. I accepted that I am a messy artist, so I embraced it totally. About 14 years ago, I was mostly in Paris, and for 8 months or so, I would go back and forth, and my paintings were getting very French and clean. And I came back.
French and clean?
Yeah, if you would have seen it 14 years ago, I was cleaning off the drips. I can't believe it.
You were interested in the edge?
I don't know what happened to me in France. And then I got back, and it was one of these things I embraced who I was. I knew I was a trashy, messy artist, and I said, why not even be more of a trashy artist and really accept who I am? So that's where the paintings and drips are flying. But I feel it's controlled drips, because if it doesn't work, I'll wipe it out, the drips. So it's a build-up.
Well, we don't think you're trashy. We think you're classy, or classy even. I just want to thank you all for coming, and to give a round of applause to Norman and to Joyce.
Thank you for coming.